Jalen Carter sits in the courthouse gallery, fingers tracing the frayed edge of his jacket. Sunlight slices through stained glass, fracturing the room into sharp beams of gold and shadow. Lawyers in tailored suits murmur into headsets, while defendants clutch paperwork like life rafts. The bailiff's voice booms, Carter versus State. Jalen stands, the marble floor icy under his worn sneakers. Judge Whitmore flips Jalen's file, his polished mahogany bench towering like a throne. "State your name," he says, not looking up. Jalen's voice is steady. Jalen Carter. The judge's pen taps click, click, clicka, metronome of disdain. Occupation, unemployed, Jalen lies. A stifled cough erupts from the gallery. A young mother grips her son's hand, her knuckles white. Whitmore's gaze flicks to the clock. "Make this quick." Jalen begins explaining the property dispute, but the judge interrupts with a sigh. "Irrelevant." The stenographer's fingers freeze, her machine silent. Jalen's hands grip the rail, veins taut. "Your Honor," the deed denied. The gavel cracks, the mother flinches, her son burrowing into her side. Jalen nods once, jaw clenched, and turns. The bailiff stares at his shoes as Jalen passes outside. Maya leans against a pillar, phone hidden in her palm. "Get it?" she whispers. Jalen taps his pocket, the recorder's red light still glowing. Thunder rumbles, the sky darkening. The courthouse doors swing shut behind him, their brass handles dull under gathering clouds. Before the story continues, please let us know from where you are watching this video. Write your city or country in the comments below. Don't forget to subscribe and hit like if you believe in stories that challenge injustice. Your engagement gives power to voices that need to be heard. Jalen steps forward, standing behind the wooden rail, his shoulders squared. Judge Whitmore's pen taps impatiently, eyes never leaving the stack of documents on his bench. "State your name for the record," he mutters, barely audible. Jalen answers, his tone calm. "Jalen Carter." The judge's hand waves dismissively, signaling for him to continue. Jalen tries to explain the dispute, but Whitmore interrupts, voice flat and uninterested. "You're wasting the court's time." The gallery shifts, a low ripple of discomfort passing through the room. The court? Stenographer's fingers hover above the keys, uncertain whether to record the judge's words or the weight behind them. Jalen's jaw clenches, but he keeps his voice even. "With respect, Your Honor," the deed. Whitmore sighs, a long exhale that fills the room with quiet contempt. Denied, his gavel comes down, sharp and final. The mother in the gallery pulls her son closer, her eyes darting between Jalen and the judge. Jalen stands motionless for a moment, the rejection settling on his shoulders. He glances at the court officer, who avoids his gaze. Busying himself with a stack of folders, Jalen turns to leave, each step measured. The judge's pen resumes its tapping, a steady reminder of power wielded without care. The gallery remains tense, no one daring to speak. Jalen's friend Maya, waiting by the door, catches his eye. She offers a small nod, her support silent but unwavering. Jalen's hands tighten into fists, but he says nothing as he exits the echo of the gavel. Following him outside, the sky is heavy with clouds, the courthouse looming behind him. The day feels colder, the injustice more pronounced. Jalen pauses on the steps, gathering himself for what comes next. Knowing this is only the beginning, Jalen stands before the bench, posture straight, eyes steady. Judge Whitmore leans back, arms folded, his gaze lingering on Jalen with a faint curl of his lips. "You're not like most who come through here," Whitmore remarks, his words slow, heavy with implication. The gallery stiffens, a hush falling over the room. Jalen's jaw flexes, but his voice remains measured. "I'm here to resolve a dispute, Your Honor." Whitmore's chuckle is low, almost mocking. "People like you always seem to have an excuse," he says, tone dripping with disdain. The court reporter glances up, her eyes searching Jalen's face for a reaction. Jalen's hands rest on the rail, knuckles pale but steady. He doesn't look away. "Or maybe we just never get heard," he replies, each word deliberate. Whitmore's eyes narrow, the power in the room shifting, if only slightly. The judge shifts in his chair, the authority he wields suddenly less secure. A young attorney at the back of the room bites her lip, glancing nervously at her notes. The mother in the gallery squeezes her son's hand, recognition flickering across. Her face, the tension is thick. Every breath held as if waiting for something to break. Whitmore clears his throat, attempting to regain control. "Let's move on," he snaps. But the moment lingers, the damage done. Jalen's calm defiance hangs in the air, a silent challenge to the judge's authority. The gallery exhales, the spell broken, but the memory of the exchange remains. Scar on the day a warning that the old ways are being questioned. Jalen turns slightly, meeting Maya's gaze by the door. She nods, her support quiet but unmistakable. The judge's words echo, but so does Jalen's resolve. Jalen stands at the rail, documents in hand, his voice calm as he outlines the facts of his case. Judge Whitmore interrupts, waving a hand as if brushing away a fly. "We've heard enough," he says, impatience clear in every syllable. Jalen presses on, determined. "If you'll allow me, Your Honor," the deed Whitmore sighs, rolling his eyes. "It's irrelevant. You're wasting everyone's time." The gallery shifts uneasily, a mother pulling her son closer, her eyes flicking between Jalen and the judge. Jalen's grip on the rail tightens, his knuckles pale, but he refuses to raise his voice. "I have evidence that the judge raises a finger, silencing him. I said enough." The court reporter's fingers slow, her gaze darting between the two men. Jalen's jaw clenches, but he maintains his composure, refusing to give Whitmore the satisfaction of seeing him break. The mother in the gallery whispers to her son, "Watch how he stands," her voice barely audible. A young attorney in the back scribbles a note, her brow furrowed. Jalen's friend Maya, standing near the exit, catches his eye and gives a small, encouraging nod. The judge leans back, arms crossed, his authority unchallenged, but his confidence rattled by Jalen's quiet persistence. Jalen lowers his papers. The weight of the moment pressing down, he glances at the judge, then at the gallery, his dignity intact despite the judge's efforts to diminish him. The room is thick with tension, every eye on Jalen, waiting to see if he will yield. He does not. Instead, he steps back, the message clear. He will not be silenced, no matter how many times he is dismissed. Jalen stands shoulders squared as Judge Whitmore delivers his final verdict with a cold, clipped tone. "People like you always have excuses," the judge says, voice echoing through the courtroom. The gallery holds its breath. Maya, seated quietly near the aisle, angles her phone just enough to capture the moment. Her hands steady despite the tension in the air. Jalen's eyes lock with Maya's for a split second, no words, just understanding. The judge's gavel comes down, sharp and final, but the real judgment lingers in the heavy pause that follows. The bailiff glances at Jalen, then quickly looks away, uncomfortable with the scene unfolding. The court reporter's hands hover above her keys, unsure if she should record the insult or the silence that follows. Maya's phone screen glows, the recording icon pulsing. She doesn't flinch when Whitmore's gaze sweeps the room, searching for any sign of dissent. Collects his papers, moving with deliberate calm. He offers a single nod to Maya as he passes a silent thank you for bearing witness to what so many pretend not to see outside. Thunder rumbles, the sky darkening as Jalen steps into the corridor. Maya follows, slipping her phone into her pocket. Her face set with quiet resolve. "You got it?" Jalen asks softly. She nods, her voice barely above a whisper. Every word. The courthouse doors swing shut behind them, the echo of the gavel replaced by the distant roll of thunder. Jalen exhales, the weight of the day settling on his shoulders, but a spark of hope flickers in his eyes. The truth has been captured, and this time it will not be buried. Jalen's memory drifts back to a cramped kitchen, the worn table scarred with years of struggle. His mother's hands tremble as she sorts through eviction notices, her voice steady despite the weight of loss. "Fight smarter, not louder," she says, eyes fierce with quiet defiance. The chipped paint on the walls seems to close in, but her resolve fills the room like a stubborn flame. Jalen watches her, the lines of worry etched deep, yet her spirit, unbroken. Her words echo in his mind, a compass guiding him through the storm of injustice. Back in the present, Jalen traces her handwriting in a faded letter, the ink smudged but the message clear. He folds the paper carefully, a silent vow, passing between past and present. The kitchen's worn light flickers, shadows dancing on the walls. Mirroring the battles fought in silence, a neighbor's distant laughter drifts through the cracked window, a reminder of a world moving on without them. Jalen's gaze hardens, the memory fueling his determination. The quiet strength of his mother's defiance becomes his armor, a shield against the prejudice waiting in the courthouse. He breathes deeply, the weight of history settling on his shoulders. The fight ahead is daunting, but the lessons learned in that small kitchen are clear: resilience, dignity, and the power of quiet resistance. The camera lingers on the worn table, the letters and the fading light a testament to the battles that shape us. Often unseen but never forgotten, Jalen waits in the dimly lit parking garage, footsteps echoing off concrete pillars. A battered sedan pulls up, headlights flickering. The window rolls down and a familiar face leans out. Mr. Harlan, the courthouse's retired bailiff. His eyes dart around, wary of shadows. "You alone?" he asks, voice low. Jalen nods, stepping closer. Harlan reaches into his coat and pulls out a small thumb drive, pressing it into Jalen's palm. "They've buried complaints for years," he mutters, glancing over his shoulder. "HR, the chief judge, even the old Da they all knew. You'll find everything in those files. Don't let anyone see you with it." Jalen's grip tightens on the drive. "Why now?" he asks, searching Harlan's face for motive. The old man's jaw works, regret flickering across his features. "I should have spoken up when I had the badge. I saw too much, did too little. You're different. You might actually get heard." A car passes, its headlights sweeping over them. Harlan flinches, pulling his collar up. "Be careful, son. These people protect their own." He hesitates, then adds, "If you dig deep enough, you'll see it. Wasn't just Whitmore, it's the whole rotten tree." Jalen nods, slipping the drive into his pocket. "Thank you," he says quietly. Harlan offers a faint, sad smile. "Don't thank me, just do what I couldn't." With that, he drives. Off taillights fading into the night, Jalen stands alone, the thumb drive heavy in his hand. The parking garage feels colder, the weight of complicity pressing in from every side. He glances up at the security camera in the corner, wondering who else might be watching. The fight for truth just got riskier, but he's ready. Security footage flickers on Jalen's laptop, the grainy image showing Maria Rodriguez standing before the bench, her toddler clinging to her skirt. Maria's voice trembles as she pleads, "Please, Your Honor, I just need to get home to my son." Her eyes are wide, desperate, darting between the judge and the public defender beside her. Judge Whitmore leans back, glancing at the docket. He yawns, then waves his hand dismissively. Bail denied. Next case, the clerk's pen hovers midair, her lips pressed tight. She glances at Maria, then at the judge, a flicker of doubt in her eyes, but she writes the order anyway. Maria's knees nearly buckle. The guard steps forward, gently taking her arm. Her son cries out, reaching for her. Maria tries to soothe him, her voice shaking. "Mijo, it's okay, I'll be home soon." The guard hesitates, his grip loosening for a moment, but duty wins out. He leads Maria away, her son's sobs echoing in the hallway. Jalen watches the footage, anger simmering beneath his calm. He rewinds, focusing on the clerk's hesitation, the guard's fleeting sympathy, and the judge's indifference. He notes each detail: the way Maria's hands shake, the way the public defender avoids her gaze, the way the courtroom moves on as if nothing happened. Later, Jalen finds the clerk in the hallway. She fidgets with her badge, voice barely above. A whisper, "I knew her ex was dangerous." I wanted to say something, but her words trail off, guilt clouding her face. Jalen nods, understanding the fear that keeps people quiet. He saves the footage. The image of Maria and her son burned into his memory. The cruelty of the system is not just in the verdict, but in the everyday choices to look away. Jalen sits at his desk, watching the courtroom video play out on his screen. An elderly black veteran stands at the witness stand, his posture rigid, medals gleaming on his jacket. He recounts the night his home was broken into, voice steady, but eyes shadowed by old battles. Judge Whitmore interrupts, barely glancing up from his paperwork. "Should have been more careful," he says, tone flat. The veteran's hand curls into a fist behind his back, the only sign of anger. His shoulders don't drop. He stands even taller. The weight of service and disappointment pressing down, a young bailiff shifts uncomfortably, glancing from the judge to the veteran. The court reporter hesitates, her fingers pausing above the keyboard. The gallery is silent, every face turned toward the man in uniform. The veteran's voice is quieter now, but he finishes his statement. Dignity unbroken. Whitmore stamps the paperwork, not bothering to look the veteran in the eye. Next, he calls, moving on without acknowledgement. The veteran steps down, medals catching the light. He offers a crisp salute to no one in particular before leaving the room, his head held high. Jalen rewinds the footage, focusing on the moments between words, the judge's indifference, the bailiff's discomfort, the reporter's doubt. He sees how respect can be stripped away, not by shouting, but by a lack of recognition. Later, Jalen passes the veteran in the courthouse corridor. The old man nods, a silent thank you in his eyes. Jalen nods back, understanding that some battles are fought in quiet rooms, and some victories are measured in how long you can stand without being seen. Jalen sits across from a young public defender in the courthouse cafeteria. The hum of quiet conversations around them. She stirs her coffee slowly, eyes avoiding his. He never listens to me, she murmurs, voice barely above a whisper. Her hands tremble slightly as she clutches a worn case Fila Black. Teenager charged with loitering, Jalen slides his card across the table, a small gesture of solidarity. You're not alone, he says softly. The defender's gaze flickers up, conflicted but grateful. What can I do? She asks, frustration and helplessness mingling in her tone. The weight of the system presses down on them both. Jalen leans forward, voice steady but low. Keep fighting, document everything, find allies. Change comes slowly, but it comes. Around them, the cafeteria buzzes with muted urgency. A janitor passes by, nodding briefly at Jalen's silent acknowledgement of shared struggle. A clerk nearby glances over, her expression tight but hopeful. Jalen's eyes drift to the courthouse windows, the sunlight fractured by bars of shadow. We're not just fighting cases, he continues. We're fighting a system that's stacked against us, but every small victory chips away at it. The defender exhales, a shaky breath that carries both weariness and resolve. I'll try, she says, voice firmer now. Jalen nods, a quiet smile breaking through. That's all anyone can ask. They sit in companionable silence, the weight of injustice balanced by a fragile hope. The fight is far from over, but at this moment, they are not alone. The courthouse clock ticks steadily, marking time in a battle that feels endless but necessary. Outside, a young intern pauses, watching the pair with a mix of admiration and uncertainty. The future of justice quietly unfolding. Jalen's voice lowers further. Every case, every story matters. We build change one step at a time. The defender nods, her eyes glistening with unshed tears. It's exhausting, she admits, but giving up isn't an option. Jalen's gaze hardens with quiet determination. We carry the weight, but we also carry the hope. A janitor pauses nearby, offering a brief, encouraging smile before moving on. Jalen sits hunched over his laptop late at night, the blue glow illuminating tired eyes. Rows and columns fill the screen names, charges, sentences. He scrolls, jaw set, as patterns emerge. Black defendants, same charges, longer sentences. The numbers don't whisper, they shout. Maya leans over his shoulder, her voice tight. That's it, isn't it? Jalen nods, fingers trembling as he highlights another discrepancy. 30% longer. Same crime, same judge. He clicks, the red line on his graph rising like a warning siren. He leans back, rubbing his temples. This isn't just bias, it's a system. Maya's hand rests on his arm, steadying him. You have to show them, make them see what they refuse to admit. Jalen exhales, the weight of proof heavy but necessary. He emails the spreadsheet. To himself, double-checking for errors. They'll say it's a coincidence. They'll say I'm reading into it. Maya shakes her head, resolving to harden her features. They can't argue with math, not when it's this clear. Jalen's phone buzzes a message from the young public defender. "I've got more files. Want to meet?" He types back. "Tomorrow. Bring everything." He saves the document. The file name, simple. Truth. Outside, the city is quiet. But inside, the numbers pulse with urgency. Jalen stands, stretching stiff muscles, the graph burned into his mind. He looks out the window, city lights flickering in the distance, and whispers, "No more hiding." Maya gathers her things, pausing at the door. "You're not alone in this." Jalen nods, gratitude flickering in his eyes. "We're going to make them listen." The spreadsheet remains open on the screen, a silent testament to injustice. Finally, measure.jalen, single quotes as phone buzzes late at night, a burner device lighting up with an anonymous message. The screen reveals a photo. Judge Whitmore laughing at a country club, arms slung around a prosecutor from a case he dismissed. The timestamp matches the day. An appeal was denied. Jalen's fingers tighten around the phone, the weight of the image sinking in. He pins the photo to his wall, a growing collage of evidence. Each piece is a thread unraveling the courthouse's carefully woven facade. He leans back, eyes scanning the room cluttered with files and notes. The anonymous tip is a crack in the armor, a glimpse behind the curtain of impartiality. The air feels heavier, charged with the promise of exposure. Truth often arrives in shadows, carried by voices too afraid to speak aloud. Jalen's gaze hardens. He knows the risk, but the stakes have never been higher. The fight is no longer just about one case. It's about dismantling a system built on favoritism and silence. He picks up his phone again, typing a quick message to Maya. Case number 4472. Confirm details. Outside, the city hums, unaware of the storm gathering in a small, cluttered office. The camera lingers on the photo, the timestamp glowing a silent accusation waiting to be heard. Jalen's eyes narrow as he studies the photo again. The casual camaraderie between judge and prosecutor, a stark contrast to the cold justice meted out in the courtroom. The room feels smaller, the walls closing in with the weight of betrayal. He pulls a worn notebook from his desk, flipping 2 pages filled with scribbled notes and case numbers. Each entry is a story of overlooked evidence, dismissed witnesses, and silent complicity. A soft knock at the door breaks his concentration. Maya steps in, her expression serious but resolute. She holds a folder thick with documents, her eyes meeting Jalen's with unspoken understanding. "This is bigger than we thought," she says quietly. "The connections run deep." Jalen nods, determination settling over him like armor. "We expose it all, no matter the cost." The camera pans to the photo again, the timestamp flickering like a heartbeat. Outside, the city's lights blur into a sea of possibility and peril. Jalen waits in the dimly lit courthouse corridor, the hum of distant voices fading into the background. A figure slips through the side door, a court clerk, her face pale and eyes darting nervously. A keycard, fingers trembling as she swipes it against the reader. The door clicks open with a soft mechanical sigh. Inside the records room, the clerk flicks on a flashlight, its beam cutting through the darkness. She moves quickly, scanning shelves lined with folders and binders. Her breath catches as she finds a terminal, fingers shaking as she plugs in a USB drive. The screen flickers to life, revealing a trove of deleted emails and documents. Outside, the faint creak of a janitor's cart echoes down the hall. The clerk freezes, heart pounding. She holds her breath as the footsteps pass, the sound fading into stillness. She exhales slowly, eyes wide with fear and determination. The next morning, Jalen finds a plain envelope slipped under his office door. Inside, the USB drive rests quietly, no note attached. He turns it over in his hands, the weight of the secret. It holds pressing down the quiet acts of courage, often go unnoticed, hidden in the shadows of a system reluctant to change. But sometimes the smallest risks carry the greatest truths. Jalen plugs the drive into his laptop, the screen illuminating his focused expression. The files reveal a pattern of erased complaints and silenced voices, a digital trail of injustice. Waiting to be uncovered, he leans back, the fight ahead clearer than ever. The courthouse walls may be thick, but the cracks are beginning to show. A young intern passes by Jalen's office, pausing to glance at the envelope on his desk. Her eyes flicker with curiosity and hope, a silent promise that the fight for justice is shared. Jalen's fingers hover over the keyboard, hesitating before opening the first file. The weight of responsibility settles on him, but so does a quiet resolve. This is more than evidence, it's a call to action. Maya sits at her kitchen table, phone in hand, thumb hovering over the upload button. She glances at Yolan, whose eyes are fixed on the screen. "Ready?" she asks, voice barely above a whisper. Yolan nods, jaw set. "Let them see it." Maya taps the screen, and the video begins its journey. Within minutes, notifications explode. The clip spreads from group chats to social feeds, the numbers climbing 10,000, 50, 100,000 views. The footage is raw. Judge Whitmore's dismissive words, Jalen's measured response, the gavel's final strike. Comments pour in, each one a story, a confession, a wound reopened. "This happened to my brother. My mother was treated the same. We see you." Yolan watches the numbers rise, the faces behind the screen multiplying. Maya's hands tremble as she reads the messages, her resolve hardening with each new voice. "They're listening," she says, eyes shining. Jalen's phone buzzes a reporter requesting an interview. A lawyer offering help, a stranger thanking him for speaking up. At the courthouse, staff gather around computers, the video looping on every screen. A bailiff shakes his head, muttering, "Never thought I'd see the day." The clerk who slipped Yolan the USB wipes her eyes, hope flickering where fear once lived. Even the janitor pauses, mop in hand. To watch the judge's mask slip, Judge Whitmore sits in his chambers, phone buzzing relentlessly. He scrolls through the comments, each one a blow. His hands shake as he dials a number, only to hang up before anyone answers. The power he wielded so easily now feels brittle, exposed. Outside, the courthouse steps fill with people, some holding signs, others just standing in quiet solidarity. Yolan steps outside, Maya at his side. The crowd parts for him, a path forged by truth. He lifts his chin, meeting their gaze. For the first time, the city is watching, and the silence has been broken. Yolan stands across the street from Judge Whitmore's mansion. The evening air, thick with anticipation. Reporters cluster near the iron gate, microphones raised, cameras tracking every movement. Whitmore peers through the blinds, his robe askew. The news chyron flashes. Bias on the bench. His wife's hands tremble as she washes dishes, a plate slipping and shattering in the sink. The sharp sound cuts through the quiet, a jarring reminder of how quickly order can collapse. Outside, a reporter calls out, voice clear and insistent. "Judge Whitmore, do you have any response to the allegations?" The judge's lips press into a thin line, refusing to answer. The crowd murmurs, judgment hanging in the air. A cameraman zooms in, capturing every flicker of discomfort on Whitmore's face. The judge's jaw tightens, the mask of composure slipping. An assistant lingers at the edge of the property, shifting from foot to foot, glancing nervously at the growing assembly. A young intern in the press pack scribbles furiously in her notepad, eyes wide with a mix of fear and hope. She senses the shift, the way power can evaporate in a single night. A security guard stands at the gate, posture rigid, gaze flickering between the mansion and the restless crowd. The old order feels brittle, ready to break. A local activist steps forward, voice steady. This isn't just about one judge. It's about a system that's failed too many for too long. The crowd responds with quiet affirmation, the energy building with every word. Whitmore's silhouette retreats deeper into the house. The mansion's grandeur, now a hollow backdrop to his unraveling, Yolan watches expression unreadable but determined. The microphones hover, waiting for a truth that remains unspoken. The city's pulse quickens as the story spills beyond courthouse walls. The night hums with the promise of change, the chorus of voices growing louder, demanding accountability. Whitmore's silence is no longer power, it is the beginning of his reckoning. Yolan stands at the courthouse steps, the evening air thick with the scent of rain and resolve. Hundreds gather, faces illuminated by flickering candlelight, each flame a testament to stories long silenced. Signs sway gently in the breeze, bearing names and faces of those forgotten by the system. A teenager holds a placard high. "Will you hear us now?" Her voice cracks as she chants, joined by the crowd's rising chorus. Jalen watches, heart heavy but steady, the weight of their hope pressing against the night. Maya stands beside him, her hand finding his in a quiet gesture of solidarity. Around them, the crowd's murmurs swell into determined chants, a wave of courage breaking through years of quiet suffering. The courthouse looms behind, its stone walls bearing witness to the moment. Inside, a young intern watches from a window, eyes wide with tears and newfound purpose. A janitor pauses in the hallway, mop in hand, nodding slowly as if acknowledging the shift in the air. The city's pulse quickens, the rally's energy spilling into streets and hearts alike. Jalen steps forward, voice calm but resolute. "This is not just our fight," he says, eyes scanning the crowd. "It's a call to all who believe in justice. We will be heard, we will be seen." The crowd erupts in applause, the sound echoing into the night. The candles flicker, shadows dancing on determined faces. The fight is far from over, but tonight, the silence breaks. The camera pulls back, capturing the mosaic of light and hope, a city awakening to the promise of change. The night air hums with quiet determination as voices rise, weaving a tapestry of resilience. A mother's whispered prayer mingles with the steady beat of footsteps, each one a promise to carry the fight forward. Jalen's gaze lingers on the faces around him, young and old, weary but unbroken. A local pastor steps onto the makeshift stage, his voice steady and warm. "We stand together," he says, "not just for ourselves, but for those who cannot speak." This is the dawn of a new chapter. Jalen stands in front of his bedroom mirror, the morning light catching the crisp lines of his newly pressed suit. He smooths the lapels, fingers brushing over the fabric with deliberate care. On the dresser, his mother's faded letter sits. Open, her words echoing in his mind, "Fight smarter, not louder." He straightens his tie, shoulders squared, the weight of expectation and history settling around him like armor dot downstairs. Maya waits by the door, her eyes shining with pride and worry. "You ready?" she asks quietly. Jalen nods, his voice steady. "It's time." As they step outside, the city feels different, charged with anticipation, the air humming with the promise of reckoning. Reporters line the courthouse steps, cameras flashing, microphones thrust forward. Jalen moves through the crowd, his presence calm, his resolve unshaken. Whitmore's car pulls up, tires crunching against the gravel. The judge steps out, suit wrinkled, face drawn. Their eyes meet for a brief, loaded moment. Whitmore looks away first, his confidence eroded. Jalen nods at Maya, who squeezes his arm in silent support. Inside, the courthouse buzzes with energy. Colleagues and strangers alike part to let Jalen pass, some offering quiet nods, others murmuring encouragement. A young clerk pauses, her gaze lingering on Jalen's suit, a symbol of dignity reclaimed, of battles fought and survived. Jalen's steps are measured, each one a declaration that he belongs here, that he will not be diminished. He enters the courtroom, the doors closing behind him with a soft but final thud. The gallery is full, every seat occupied, the air thick with expectation. Jalen takes his place at the front, setting his files on the table, hands steady. The judge's bench looms ahead, but today, the power in the room has shifted. Jalen exhales, the suit fitting him like a second skin. He is no longer just a defendant or a witness. Today, he stands as an advocate, armored in truth and ready for the fight ahead. Jalen clicks the play button, the courtroom clip flickering to life on the large screen. Whitmore's tight smile curls as he dismisses Jalen's calm defiance. The judicial board leans forward, eyes wide with growing disbelief. Whitmore's knuckles whiten, his voice echoing through the room. "People like you." A board member's pen drops onto the polished table, the sharp clatter reverberating like a gavel's strike. The room holds its breath, the weight of truth pressing down. Whitmore's facade tightens, sweat beading at his temple, fingers drumming. Nervously, on the armrest, Jalen's gaze remains steady, voice low but clear as he narrates the evidence. The video loops, each frame exposing the judge's bias, the dismissive gestures, the subtle sneers. The board members exchange glances, some nodding, others biting their lips in silent acknowledgement. The stenographer pauses, her fingers hovering above the keys, caught between duty and doubt. A young clerk shifts uncomfortably, eyes flickering to the door as if seeking escape. The atmosphere thickens, the old order cracking under the weight of exposure. Whitmore's eyes dart around, searching for an ally, but finds none. His voice grows brittle, the confident tone replaced by a fragile edge. The room's tension is palpable, every breath held as the evidence unfolds. Jalen's calm presence anchors the storm, his restraint a sharp contrast to the judge's unraveling. The board chair leans forward, voice steady. "Judge Whitmore, do you have anything to say?" The judge's silence is deafening. The room, hanging on the precipice of change outside. The courthouse steps fill with murmurs, the first cracks in a long-standing system. The camera lingers on the screen, the unblinking eye capturing a moment that will echo far beyond these walls. A board member clears her throat, breaking the heavy pause. The judge's shoulders slump, the weight of years pressing down. A junior member shifts in her seat, eyes glistening with unshed tears. The room feels smaller, the walls closing in on the once untouchable figure. Jalen's voice softens, recounting the faces behind the cases, the unheard, the dismissed, the forgotten. The video fades to black, but the impact lingers. The moment marks a turning point, a quiet victory for those long unheard. Jalen stands at the front of the room, a thick stack of transcripts in his hands. He lays them on the table with deliberate care, the sound sharp in the tense air. "These are the records?" he says quietly, sliding highlighted pages toward the board. Every line is a wound appeals denied, sentences lengthened, voices dismissed with a flick of Whitmore's pen. Whitmore's attorney flips through the pages, face paling with each turn. These are isolated incidents, he tries, but his voice falters. The board chair adjusts her glasses, eyes narrowing as she scans the evidence. A fan stirs the air, sending a loose transcript fluttering to the floor. No one moves to retrieve it. The moment is too heavy, but his hands tremble as he reads aloud. Defendant requests reconsideration. Public defender objects overruled. Defendant's testimony struck from the record. The words hang in the air, each one a reminder of justice withheld. The court reporter looks down, her lips pressed tight, as if holding back tears. A board member leans forward, knuckles white against the polished wood. "How many?" she asks, her voice barely above a whisper. Jalen meets her gaze. "Too many," the answer lands like a blow, the truth undeniable. Whitmore shifts in his seat, jaw clenched, eyes fixed on a spot just beyond the table. A clerk in the back of the room scribbles notes, her pen shaking. The transcripts pile up, a mountain of paper that cannot be ignored. Each page tells a story, a life altered, a plea unheard, a verdict delivered without mercy. Jalen gathers the transcripts, his movements slow, reverent. He looks at the board, the room, the judge. This is not just paper, this is the cost of indifference. The word settle, cutting deeper than any gavel ever could. Jalen steps to the evidence board, pinning up a photograph of an elderly black veteran standing in court, medals glinting on his chest. The image is stark, his posture proud but weary. Jalen's voice is quiet but firm. He served this country. He came here for justice. He points to a transcript beneath the photo, reading Whitmore's words aloud, "Should have been more careful." The room absorbs the phrase, "the callousness." Echoing off the walls, a board member looks away, shame flickering across her face. The veteran's eyes, captured in the photo, seem to look straight through the judge, demanding acknowledgement. The veteran appears on the livestream, his face lined with years of service and disappointment. He listens as his story is told, tracking down his cheek, but his chin stays high. A young board member wipes his own eyes. Moved by the silent strength radiating from the screen, Whitmore shifts in his chair, gaze fixed on the table. His fingers fumble with a pen, the usual confidence gone. The board chair glances at the photo, then at Whitmore, her expression hardening. "This is what your rulings have cost," she says, voice low. Jalen pauses, letting the weight of the moment settle. The gallery is still, every person present feeling the sting of that dismissal. The medals on the veteran's chest gleam under the courtroom lights, a silent rebuke to the indifference that met his plea. A clerk in the corner stands, a little straighter, inspired by the veteran's dignity. The court reporter's hands tremble as she types, capturing every word for the record. Jalen's eyes meet the veteran's on the screen, a silent promise passing between them. "Your story matters." The photograph remains on the board, medals shining, a testament to battles fought both abroad and at home. Jalen projects a new image onto the screen, a glossy photo of Judge Whitmore laughing with a prosecutor at a country club, drinks in hand. The timestamp glows in the corner, matching the day a critical appeal was denied. The board chair stiffens, her eyes narrowing as she takes in the scene. Whitmore's chair creaks as he shifts, discomfort written across his face. A juror in the gallery whispers, "Is that the same prosecutor from last month's case?" The question ripples through the room, drawing uneasy glances. The photo's casual camaraderie stands in stark contrast to the judge's stern demeanor in court. Lets the image linger, the silence in the room growing heavier. Whitmore clears his throat, trying to reclaim control. "That photo is irrelevant," he says, but his voice lacks conviction. Jalen's reply is measured, almost gentle. It's context. It's about who has access and who pays the price. When doors close, a board member leans forward, studying the faces in the photo. He circles the prosecutor's name on his notepad, connecting dots that were never meant to be seen. The gallery sits motionless, the old boundaries of power and privilege exposed by a single snapshot. The clerk in the back fidgets, her pen tapping nervously against her notebook. The court reporter glances at the screen, her expression a mix of disbelief and recognition. Whitmore's jaw tightens, his gaze fixed on the image as if willing it to disappear. Jalen steps back, letting the evidence speak for itself. The photograph remains projected, a silent accusation framed in ink and light. The room feels smaller, the walls closing in around the judge. The board chair finally speaks, her tone sharp. "We see the pattern now." The image stays on the screen, a reminder that justice cannot exist in the shadows of privilege. Jalen steps forward, handing the microphone to Maria Rodriguez. Her hands tremble slightly as she takes it, voice cracking with emotion. "He treated me like a dog," she says, eyes glistening with tears. The courtroom falls into a heavy hush, the weight of her words settling like dust. The screen behind her flickers, displaying a child's drawing a jail cell surrounded by flowers. Innocence? Trapped behind bars, Maria's voice softens. "My son drew this while I was locked away. I want him to grow up knowing justice means something different." Whitmore's head dips, his usual composure faltering. The stenographer pauses, wiping a tear from her cheek. A board member shifts uncomfortably, glancing at the floor. The room feels smaller, the walls closing in on the judge's fading authority. Jalen watches quietly, his gaze steady, as Maria's courage fills the space. The microphone crackles, a fragile lifeline for voices long silenced. The judge's silence speaks louder than any defense. The gallery exhales slowly, the tension breaking like a wave. A young clerk leans forward, eyes bright with hope. The moment lingers, a turning point etched in quiet dignity. The camera pulls back, capturing the faces of those present, some tearful, others resolute. The fight for justice continues, carried on the fragile crackle of a microphone and the strength of a single voice. A hush falls over the room as Maria's words echo. The microphone's faint static, underscoring the gravity. Jalen's eyes meet hers, a silent vow passing between them. The board members exchange glances, the weight of truth pressing down. Outside the courtroom, whispers ripple through the crowd, the story spreading like wildfire. The microphone's crackle becomes a symbol, a fragile but unbreakable thread connecting the silenced to the heard. Jalen's voice breaks the quiet, low and steady. "This is not just one story. It's the story of many. We will not be ignored." The judge's gaze falters, the veneer of control slipping away. The room holds its breath, the moment suspended between past injustice and future hope. The boardroom is thick with tension as members exchange furtive glances, their whispers barely audible but heavy with consequence. One member circles the word "guilty" on a legal pad, the pens scratched loud in the quiet room. Another exhales deeply, nodding subtly at Jalen, a silent agreement passing between them. Judge Whitmore sits rigid, his reflection fractured in the polished surface of the conference table. His fingers twitch nervously, betraying the calm facade. The weight of the evidence presses down, the walls closing in on the once untouchable figure. Jalen's steady gaze meets the judge's, unflinching and resolute. The room holds its breath, the power dynamic shifting with every exchanged look. The board chair clears her throat, breaking the heavy pause. "Judge Whitmore, do you have anything to say?" The judge's silence is deafening, a tacit admission of defeat. A young clerk shifts in her seat, eyes glistening with unshed tears. The stenographer's fingers hover uncertainty above the keyboard, caught between duty and conscience. The atmosphere is electric, charged with the promise of change and the collapse of old power. Outside, murmurs ripple through the courthouse halls, the first cracks in a long-standing system. The camera lingers on the boardroom door, the echo of whispered judgments marking a turning point. The moment is quiet but seismic, a silent verdict that will reverberate far beyond these walls. A janitor pauses in the hallway, mop in hand, his gaze lingering on the closed door. He shakes his head slowly, a quiet witness to the shifting tides. Nearby, a young intern bites her lip, her fingers nervously twisting a pen. The weight of history pressing down in the corner. A senior board member adjusts his glasses, his eyes narrowing as he studies the faces around the table. The tension is palpable, the air thick with unspoken truths. A legal assistant clears her throat softly, glancing at the judge with a mixture of pity and relief. Jalen's voice remains calm, his presence steady as the room waits for the inevitable. The judge's silence stretches the unspoken verdict. Hanging heavy, the board chair's gaze hardens, signaling the end of an era. The room exhales collectively, the first breath of a new chapter. The board chair sits forward, her voice steady but grave, all in favor of suspension. The question hangs in the air, every eye fixed on her. One by one, hands rise slowly at first, then with growing certainty, 10 hands in all, each gesture deliberate, each vote a quiet stand against years of unchecked power. Whitmore's breath catches a faint tremor in his shoulders. His wedding ring clinks against the table as he grips the edge, knuckles paling. The usual confidence in his posture has vanished, replaced by a rigid stillness. He glances around, searching for a single ally, but finds only averted eyes and set jaws. A board member hesitates, then lifts her hand, her decision final. The gallery watches, some with relief, others with tears. The chairwoman's gavel hovers, the moment stretched thin with anticipation. Outside, the crowd's murmur swells, the sound seeping through the walls like a rising tide. Jalen stands at the front, his face calm, his hands folded. He meets the gaze of each board member, gratitude and resolve flickering in his eyes. Maya stands at his side, her hand resting lightly on his arm, a silent anchor in the storm. The chairwoman lowers the gavel, voice clear. The motion passes. Judge Whitmore is hereby suspended, effective immediately. The words ring out, final and absolute. Whitmore's head drops, his shoulders sagging under the weight of the decision. The board's collective exhale fills the room, the tension breaking at last. A young clerk wipes her eyes, hoping to shine through her tears. The court reporter's fingers resume their steady rhythm, capturing the moment for history. The gallery erupts in quiet applause, the sound respectful but fierce. Jalen closes his eyes for a heartbeat, the enormity of the moment settling in. The board's hands remain raised for a moment longer, a silent promise that justice can and will prevail. Rises from his chair, the once familiar courtroom suddenly foreign. He gathers his robe, bunching it under his arm, the fabric wrinkled and heavy. Avoiding the main aisle, he slips through a side door, shoulders hunched, face drawn. The hallway is empty, except for a janitor polishing the floor, who pauses, mop in hand, and offers a brief, sympathetic nod. Paparazzi bulbs flare as Whitmore emerges into the alley, their flashes momentarily blinding. He stumbles, knees scraping the concrete, the sting a reminder that power offers no cushion for a fall. The janitor steps forward, extending a hand, but Whitmore recoils, pride refusing even this small kindness. He steadies himself, brushing dust. From his suit, the robe now a burden rather than a symbol. Behind him, the courthouse windows glow with the light of a new era. The crowd's distant cheers reach his ears, muffled but unmistakable. Whitmore glances back, eyes lingering on the building that once represented his authority. Now, it stands as a monument to his undoing. A young reporter scribbles notes from the curb, her gaze sharp and unflinching. She catches Whitmore's eye, but he looks away. shame etched deep in his features. The alley feels colder, the walls closing in. As he limps toward his waiting car, the driver opens the door without a word, the silence between them thick. Whitmore slides into the back seat, the robe sprawled across his lap, its weight inescapable. He stares out the window, watching the courthouse recede, the chapter closing behind him. The janitor resumes his work, mop gliding across the floor, erasing the last traces of Whitmore's hurried exit. Inside, the courthouse buzzes with new energy, the old guard gone, the future uncertain but open. Yalan steps out onto the courthouse steps, greeted by a sea of faces, some tearful, others jubilant. The air vibrates with applause and chants, the crowd's energy a living force. A teenager tosses roses onto the steps, petals scattering at Jalen's feet. An elderly man in a faded uniform salutes, his gesture solemn and proud. Maya stands beside Yalan, her phone raised to capture the moment. Her hands tremble, tears blurring her vision as she records the crowd's cheers. "This is for all of us," she whispers, voice thick with emotion. Yalan nods, his expression softening as he places a hand over his mother's locket, tucked beneath his shirt. The crowd's roar grows, voices blending into a single, powerful chorus. "Justice now! Justice now!" The chant rolls across the plaza, echoing off stone and glass. Children wave handmade signs, their words bold and hopeful. A local pastor leads a prayer, head bowed, his words lost in the swell of celebration. Reporters jostle for position, microphones thrust forward, but Yalan ignores the questions, his focus on the people who made this moment possible. A young woman pushes through, the throng pressing a note into Jalen's hand. "Thank you for fighting for my brother," she says, tears streaming down her face. The courthouse doors swing open behind him, staff and clerks stepping outside to witness the scene. Some join the applause, others simply watch the realization, dawning that history has shifted. The old order has fallen, replaced by something raw, uncertain, and real. Jalen closes his eyes for a moment, letting the sound wash over him. The crowd's roar is not just celebration, it's a promise that the fight for justice will continue. Carried by every voice, every hand, every heart gathered on these steps. Inside the courtroom, the judge's bench sits vacant, its authority stripped away. The nameplate bearing Whitmore's title has been removed, leaving only a faint outline on the polished wood. Sunlight streams through tall windows, illuminating dust motes that drift in the quiet air. The room, once filled with tension and verdicts, now feels lighter, as if it's exhaled after holding its breath for years. A janitor moves methodically through the space, polishing the bench with slow, careful strokes. Each pass erases a little more of the past fingerprints, scuff marks, the residue of decisions that shaped so many lives. He pauses, glancing up at the new portrait hanging on the far wall. Judge Eleanor Clark, the city's first black woman. On the bench, her smile is gentle but resolute, eyes shining with the promise of fairness. A group of clerks enters quietly, their voices hushed. One lingers by the bench, fingertips tracing the edge where the gavel once fell. Another snaps a photo of Judge Clark's portrait, sending it to friends with a message. History, finally. The court reporter stands in the doorway, notebook pressed to her chest, a small smile breaking through her usual reserve. Jalen steps in, taking in the transformed space. He nods to the janitor, who returns the gesture with a quiet pride. Room feels different, honest, waiting to be filled with new stories. Jalen's gaze lingers on the portrait, gratitude and hope mingling in his chest as he turns to leave. The camera lingers on the empty bench, the final echo of the gavel. Fading into memory, the courthouse, once a fortress of exclusion, now stands as a beacon for what justice can become. The future is unwritten, but for the first time, it feels truly possible. Whitmore sits alone in a corner booth of a dimly lit diner, scrolling through news feeds filled with his own disgrace. Each headline is a fresh wound, the words cutting, deeper than any gavel. The waitstaff avoided his table, eyes averted, their silence louder than any accusation. He stirs his coffee slowly, hands trembling, the bitter taste matching the cold weight. Settling in his chest, the diner's hum is a stark contrast to the storm raging inside him. He watches clips of Yalan speaking at a community event, the voice calm but resolute, echoing hope and accountability to things Whitmore can no longer claim. His fingers tighten around the cup, knuckles whitening as memories of power slip away. Outside, the rain taps a steady rhythm against the window, mirroring the relentless beat of public judgment. Former colleagues cross the street to avoid him, their faces averted, conversations hushed. The courthouse steps he once commanded now feel miles away, replaced by this quiet exile. A young waitress approaches hesitantly, offering a refill. Shakes his head, voice barely audible. "No, thank you." Her eyes linger a moment longer, a flicker of sympathy in the dim light. He nods slightly, a silent acknowledgement of the distance between them. The camera lingers on Whitmore's face, etched with regret and isolation. The headlines scroll endlessly on his phone, a digital reminder that justice, once wielded as a weapon, can turn and cut deep. The diner's neon sign flickers outside, casting long shadows that stretch and fade, an emblem of a fallen man's fading influence. The scene closes with Whitmore staring into his coffee, the steam rising like the last remnants of his authority, disappearing into the cold air. Whitmore walks down the familiar neighborhood street, each step slower than before. The sun casts long shadows, the air thick with unspoken judgment. Neighbors who once greeted him now cross to the other side, their eyes avoiding contact. A child tugs at her mother's sleeve, whispering questions she cannot answer. The quiet is heavier than any courtroom sentence. He pauses at a mailbox, fingers brushing chipped paint, memories flooding back. The street, once warm and welcoming, now feels cold and distant. A man on a porch folds his arms, gaze fixed on a distant tree, exchanging a glance with another, silent agreement in shared disappointment. Whitmore's breath catches as he reaches his front steps. The doorframe, once a symbol of security, now looms like a barrier. He hesitates, then steps back, swallowed by the long shadows stretching across cracked pavement. The neighborhood's verdict is clear: exclusion without confrontation. A slow unraveling of respect and belonging. The camera lingers on the empty crosswalk, a stark symbol of the divide that words can no longer bridge. The street holds its breath, the weight of history pressing down as Whitmore's figure fades into the distance, swallowed by the quiet judgment of a transformed community. But the story is not just about loss. It is about the quiet power of collective memory and the slow, steady reclaiming of dignity by those once silenced. The neighbors turning away is a statement. But it also marks a shift, a community no longer willing to accept the old ways, as Whitmore's footsteps echo on the cracked pavement. The weight of his past actions presses down, but so does the promise of change. The street, once divided, now holds the potential for healing, if only the walls of silence can be broken. The sun dips lower, casting a golden hue that softens the harsh edges of the neighborhood. A child's laughter rings out from a nearby yard, a reminder that life continues, and with it, the chance for new beginnings. Whitmore's figure grows smaller, swallowed by the dusk, a symbol of an era ending and another quietly beginning. Walks through his old neighborhood, the familiar streets bathed in soft afternoon light. Faces turn as he passes, some nod in respect. Others offer tentative smiles. Children run up, their eyes wide with curiosity and hope, asking questions about justice and change. Elders clap his shoulder, pride shining in their gaze. The community's embrace is quiet but powerful, a testament to dignity earned through restraint and perseverance. Jalen's steps are steady, each one a reminder of the battles fought and the progress made. The weight of history presses lightly, replaced by a fragile hope that lingers in every greeting. A young woman approaches, her voice trembling as she thanks him for standing up for her brother. Jalen listens, his expression softening the connection. Between them, a silent promise of continued fight. Nearby, a group gathers, sharing stories of struggle and resilience, their voices weaving a tapestry of collective strength and memory. Jalen pauses at a corner, looking back at the courthouse. In the distance, the building no longer looms as a symbol of exclusion, but stands as a beacon of possibility. He breathes deeply, the air filled with the scent of blooming flowers and fresh beginnings. The moment is quiet, but charged. A neighborhood once fractured, now slowly knitting itself together. The camera lingers on Jalen's face, calm and resolute, as the neighborhood hums with quiet determination. The fight for justice continues, carried forward by every nod, every smile, every whispered word of encouragement. The future is uncertain, but the path is clear one, paved by courage, humility, and the steady work of healing. Jalen steps into the courthouse, the air charged with quiet anticipation. The heavy wooden doors creak softly behind him, closing out the murmurs of the outside world. Workers move with deliberate care, removing the portrait of Judge Whitmore. The frame, ornate and worn, carries the weight of years filled with decisions that shaped lives many left unspoken. The new portrait of Judge Eleanor Clark is unveiled slowly, the canvas catching the light. Her eyes, steady and bright, seem to hold the promise of resilience and hope. The room feels different, lighter, as if a long-held breath has finally been released. This image is more than paint and canvas. It is a beacon for change, a symbol of progress in a place long resistant to it. Staff members pause in their tasks, some pulling out phones to capture the moment, others exchanging glances filled with cautious optimism. The weight of history hangs thick in the air, but so does the promise of a new chapter. The old guard's image fades, replaced by a symbol of inclusion and dignity. Jalen's gaze lingers on the portrait, a silent vow passing between him and the judge depicted. The courthouse walls, once heavy with exclusion, now echo with the footsteps of those who fought for justice and those who will carry it forward. Nearby, a clerk adjusts her glasses, a small smile breaking through her usual reserve, her eyes reflecting the hope that has begun to take root. Outside, the city moves on, unaware of the quiet revolution unfolding within these walls. The camera pulls back slowly, capturing the courthouse bathed in soft golden light. The new portrait glows, a testament to resilience, dignity, and the enduring power of change. It stands as a quiet promise that justice can be rewritten, that the future belongs to those who dare to demand it. The scene closes with the courthouse doors, now open wide, inviting all who seek fairness and truth. The air hums with possibility, the story of transformation continuing beyond these walls. A young intern pauses at the entrance, her eyes wide with wonder. She takes a deep breath, stepping forward into a space that promises change. The courthouse, once a fortress of exclusion, now stands as a beacon of hope and renewal. The future is uncertain, but the path is clear. Jalen sits at a long conference table, the glow of a laptop screen casting sharp shadows across his face. Around him, city officials and legal advisors shuffle papers, their expressions a mix of skepticism and cautious hope. A fresh memo lies open, its pages filled with new policies aimed at dismantling bias and fostering transparency. The beginning, Jalen says quietly, voice steady but charged with urgency. We're rewriting the rules, one step at a time. A city official nods, flipping through the document. Bias training, transparent complaint processes, diverse hiring standards, these are changes we've talked about for years. Now, they're happening. Jalen's eyes scan the room, catching the subtle shifts, a clerk's tentative smile, a lawyer's thoughtful nod, a young intern's hopeful gaze. The weight of history presses down, but so does the promise of progress. He leans forward, fingers interlaced. It won't be easy. Old habits die hard. But every memo, every meeting, every policy is a brick in the foundation of a fairer system. The room hums with quiet determination. A legal advisor clears her throat, adding, accountability measures are in place. No more turning a blind eye. Jalen's gaze hardens. We hold ourselves to a higher standard now. The community expects it. Outside the courthouse, the city moves on, unaware of the slow revolution unfolding within. But inside these walls, change is no longer a distant hope. It's a tangible force. Reshaping the future, the camera lingers on the memo's final page, the signature line waiting to be filled. The scene fades with a sense of cautious optimism, the fight for justice marching forward. One memo at a time, Judge Eleanor Clark enters her courtroom for the first time, her presence calm but commanding. The gallery is packed, faces old and new, some skeptical, others filled with cautious hope. She greets the bailiff by name, offers a warm nod to the court reporter, and pauses to acknowledge the young clerk in the front row. Every gesture signals respect, a quiet break from the past. She takes her seat, adjusting her robe with practiced ease. The room settles, a hush falling as she lifts the gavel. "This court is open," Judge Clark announces, her voice clear. And steady, her first ruling is measured, her explanations thorough, every word chosen to build trust. A defendant stands before her, nervous and uncertain. Judge Clark listens intently, asking questions with genuine interest. The defendant's lawyer glances up, surprised by the judge's patience. A prosecutor presents evidence, but Judge Clark insists on fairness, her tone even but firm. "Everyone deserves to be heard," she says, and the words ripple through the gallery. The court reporter's fingers move with renewed energy, capturing each moment as if history is being written. A young clerk whispers to a colleague, "It's different now." The sentiment spreads, quiet but infectious. Even the bailiff, usually stoic, stands a little taller. The atmosphere is lighter, the old tension replaced by a sense of possibility. Outside, the city's rhythm continues, but inside this room, change is tangible. Jalen watches from the back, a small, proud smile on his face. The courtroom feels transformed, no longer a place of exclusion, but a space for justice and dignity. Judge Clark's gavel falls, not as a weapon, but as a promise. The future, once uncertain, now feels open and bright. Jalen stands by his apartment window, the city lights flickering like distant stars. He watches the quiet streets below, the hum of life softened by the night. His thoughts drift to the battles fought not with shouts, but with steady resolve and quiet courage. Each moment a testament to what it means to endure. He recalls his mother's words, her voice steady despite hardship. "Change doesn't roar. It whispers in every story we refuse to let die." The memory anchors him, a reminder that progress is often slow, subtle, but relentless. The room is dim, shadows stretching across the walls like the long arc of history he carries. Jalen's gaze lingers on a photo of his mother, worn but proud. He breathes deeply, the weight of responsibility balanced by hope outside. The city moves on, unaware of the small victories won in whispered conversations and unseen acts. Jalen's reflection in the glass is steady, a quiet promise to keep fighting, to keep listening, to keep believing. He turns from the window, the soft click of the door marking a new beginning. The fight is far from over, but the path forward is clear, one step, one story, one whisper at a time. He moves to his desk, pulling out a worn notebook filled with notes and names. Each page tells a story of struggle, resilience, and the slow dismantling of a system built on silence. His fingers trace the ink, a tactile connection to the lives behind the words. A soft knock at the door breaks the quiet. Maya steps in, her eyes reflecting the same determination. She places a folder on the desk filled with new evidence and testimonies. Their shared glance speaks volumes. This is far from finished. Yellow nods, the weight of the fight settling on his shoulders, but also fueling his resolve. He knows the road ahead is long, filled with setbacks and small victories. But in this moment, surrounded by shadows and light, he feels the quiet power of change. The city's heartbeat continues outside, steady and unyielding. Jalen's reflection in the window merges with the night, a symbol of resilience and hope intertwined. The fight is not loud, but it is relentless, carried forward by those who refuse to be silenced.